all of you here. I know we don't have a huge crowd tonight, but that's good for you. More time for you to ask questions and for us to help you out. So I'm going to just talk for a few minutes because I think there are a couple of you who, I know there are at least a couple of you who are seniors maybe who have not applied, or juniors who obviously would not have applied yet. So I'm just going to briefly go over that and a little bit about our merit aid. And then I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Financial Aid, Mary Gazelle, and she's going to have the bulk of the program and go over as we were advertising it as how to file the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. So, and I do want to add that for those of you here tonight, for most of you, there might be one family that doesn't fall into this category, but for most of you, I'm also your admission counselor. If your son or daughter attends high school in Westmoreland County, that is part of my area. The other areas have other admission counselors, and if you don't know who that is, you can see that on our website. We just divide things out geographically. So like I said, just to go over a little bit about the admission process. As far as our criteria here at St. Vincent for freshman admission, we focus most heavily, though not exclusively, but most heavily on 3 areas, and that would be GPA, test scores, and curriculum. So our average GPA is about 3.4, 3.5 each year. And then SAT or ACT, we accept either one. For the ACT, our middle 50% is usually around 20 to 26. And our SAT average for the new, we're kind of projecting, will be around 1130. And that's just with 2 sections. So it gives you an idea. Curriculum is the other area that's very, very important, and we give a little bit of a breakdown there. And all of you hopefully got a fact sheet when you came in, or at least each family. If you didn't, we can give you one after. Just see me. It says just the facts on it, and on the back it has this breakdown as well of requirements or for your students' curriculum in high school. So if you missed that, it's on there. And as I said, if you don't have it, let me know after. We'll make sure you get one. As far as the timeline, we usually start reviewing applications each year around early October, give or take. So for those of you, I think there's at least one, maybe a couple juniors here. It's okay if the student wants to apply over the summer. It does not hurt anything. If you just want to get that off your plate, check it off your list. But you might have a little bit of a wait until we start reviewing. Once we start, we're pretty quick at getting back to students. We usually get back to students within 2 to 3 weeks, as we say on here. So we do operate on a rolling admission basis. We recommend applying sometime during the fall of your senior year, but if there are any seniors here tonight who haven't, it is definitely not too late. We're currently waiving our fee until the end of this month, so I would encourage you to get your application in if you're a senior and if you haven't already. As I mentioned, we try to get back to you pretty quickly, usually within a couple weeks. So when we do, you'll get a letter, and it might have a decision right off the bat, or it might have a request for something additional. For example, mid-year grades, maybe we feel we need another round of test scores or something like that. So if that happens, don't panic. It means we're certainly interested, but the committee feels a little additional information is needed. But you would be notified if that's the case. As far as how to apply, pretty straightforward. Obviously, we would need an application, and I have some paper ones with me. If anyone needs one tonight, again, see me after, I'll give you one. A lot of students will apply online or do the common application. So any of those ways are perfectly fine. The application fee, usually each year we waive it until at least December 1st. As I mentioned previously, this year we've extended it, and that we may extend it again, but we're waiving it at least until the end of this month. But usually each year we waive it until at least December 1st, so that's very common. And then we would need an official transcript from the high school, SAT or ACT scores. A lot of high schools will go ahead and include that right on your transcript. If your high school does that, that's fine. That makes it easier for you, for them, for us. If not, you would have to get the scores sent from the testing agency. Those are the only items we require for freshman admission. An essay and letters of recommendation are optional, so that's up to the student. Okay, and then a little bit about merit-based aid, and also hopefully all of you, or at least each family, received a financial aid and scholarships brochure. And once again, if you didn't, see me after, and we'll be sure you get one. And that gives a nice outline of this as well, but I did just want to go over it a little bit. So the first one, the merit scholarships, that's really our main primary scholarship for incoming freshmen, and we award that at the time that the student is admitted. So we will automatically review the file, and we look at the GPA GPA and the SAT or ACT. And then we'll award an amount, and we let students know in the same mailing that they get their acceptance letter. They'll get a letter letting them know about the merit award. So, and the handout does outline the different levels for you. So we're pretty, clear cut and transparent about that process. The next bullet, those are the other 3 items that we typically do just based on the application file. So if any of you go to a Catholic high school, there's a grant for that, $2,000. I don't think anyone here is out of state, but is anyone here from out of state? Okay. If any of you happen to be first generation, meaning neither parent has a bachelor's degree, there's a grant for that as well. So those, like I said, we typically do at the time of admission. And then the others require some action on the student's part, some more extensive than others. The alumni grant, and I also have forms for those if anyone needs one after. There is a form, as I mentioned, that also includes a brief essay. It's pretty easy though, and it's due May 1st. And this grant is $1,000 per year. And if you don't know any alumni, you can let your admission counselor know. And again, for many of you, that would be me. And we can help link you with somebody. So that's a pretty easy one to do, and that's one we really encourage you to pursue. The Benedictine Pastors Award, if any of you are a member of a parish and have been for at least a year, and your priest is a Benedictine, he can write a brief letter testifying to that fact by May 1st, and there's a $2,000 grant for that one. The Wimmer Scholarship Competition has passed for seniors, but for any juniors in the room or listening elsewhere, we do typically offer this in. And this is a competitive exam, and students there are certain requirements even to take it, some cutoffs for GPA and test scores, but students who are eligible and register in time and all of that can come take this exam, and then the top 5 students get enormous scholarships. So our first place winner gets tuition, room, and board for 4 years, and the next 4 students get tuition for 4 years. So those of you that are good test takers that are still in high school can try for that. That's a really nice opportunity. And then the STEP scholarships, Aurelius scholarships, and Fred Rogers scholarships have a separate application process. And the handout you got, they each give a separate website for each of those, and you can go on there. They're all due March 15th, and it'll explain what you need to do to apply for that. So, and the need-based aid, Mary's going to go over that here. So before I turn it over, for seniors who have been accepted or hopefully will be accepted, I want to let you know that you have until May 1st to decide if you want to accept us or not. So if you've been offered admission, we hope you choose to take us up on the offer. And to do so, you would need to submit all your forms by May 1st. All the initial forms. There'll be some forms coming after that, but the housing forms and such, and then the deposit. That's very important. So if you're going to live on campus, it's a $200 deposit. If you're going to commute, it would be a $100 deposit, and that is due, again, by May 1st. So, okay, before I turn it over to Mary, are there any, we'll all be available afterwards too, but are there any questions about any of the admission or merit-based aid before I turn it over to Mary at the moment? All right, I think Mary's up. She's going to go over the nitty-gritty of the FAFSA.
Hi, my name is Mary Gazelle. I'm the Director of Financial Aid at St. Vincent College. Welcome tonight, and thank you for coming. So what I'm going to attempt to do tonight is to basically go through the FAFSA pretty much step by step so that it gives you an idea of what they're really looking for and tips so that you don't make a mistake or pitfalls that you might fall into. So first question is, a lot of people ask, why should I file the FAFSA? I know I'm not going to be eligible for any grants from the state or the federal government. Well, you don't know until you apply is one. Another reason why we ask you to file the FAFSA for your own good is if you file the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. It is sent to the state in which you live. In this case, for all of you, it's to send to the state of Pennsylvania. And you are also considered for state aid. The income guidelines for state aid in the state of Pennsylvania is a little bit higher, so where you may not qualify for a federal Pell Grant or a federal SEOG grant, you may qualify for the state FIA grant. If your son or daughter or you as a parent will be seeking federal direct loans, you do need to start with the FAFSA application. The FAFSA is required. Some outside scholarships also require that a FAFSA be submitted because some of them are need-based. And equally important, St. Vincent College offers an institutional need-based scholarship. So after you've gotten your letter for your merit aid and based on your SATs and your GPA scores, you do the FAFSA, we get the results of your FAFSA, and if you still have an unmet need, which is the cost of attendance minus your EFC and your other aid, we will award additional St. Vincent need-based aid. So it's worth your while to fill that out. And often there's a lot of people that are not eligible for the federal and state grants, but still are eligible for the St. Vincent need-based aid. Sorry, I forgot to do the screen the first time. Okay, when can I file the FAFSA? Well, this is the first year that high school graduating seniors can file October 1st. So by a show of hands, how many have done the FAFSA for this coming year? We have one. Okay, good. Previously, you weren't able to apply until January 1st, and they have backed that up to October 1st to give students more time. And in addition, they have gone to what they call a prior year, so that you're not having to use your 2016 income on this FAFSA. You're using 2015 income, and I would say that most people have their 2015 income taxes already prepared and sent in and whatnot. Before, you had to use the year that just ended, and most people did not have those finished until April or even later. We have a priority filing deadline of April 1st for freshmen, and the only reason we have that is so that, one, they can meet the Pennsylvania State Grant deadline, have time for that, which is May 1st, and that's a hard deadline. They do not sway on that. So you want to make sure if you're a Pennsylvania resident, you definitely have it in prior to May 1st. But the April 1st deadline allows us to get the results of your FAFSA and do a complete financial aid package for you before you have to make your decision on May 1st. That's not to say that if you miss that deadline, you can't still apply, because you certainly can. You can apply all the way up until the end of next year, actually, for the 17-18 year. Okay, getting started on the FAFSA. So what you're going to need to do is the student and the parent both will need a federal student aid user ID. Basically, this is your identity. What you will need to put in when you apply for this user ID is the Social Security number, name, and date of birth, and you will need to provide an email address. The parent and the student both each have to have their own FSA user ID. This will be used to electronically sign a lot of your federal documents, the FAFSA for one. If you're taking out a loan, your master promissory note, you will sign with the FSA user ID. And then later on down the road in your college career, even after you've graduated, we have a site the federal government does. It's the National Student Loan Database, where it compiles all of the aid that you've received, all of the federal aid that you've received over your college career. So again, student and parent both need to sign the FAFSA, so that they each need their own FSA user ID. So before you start the FAFSA, and we're talking FAFSA on the web now, I think they still print paper applications, but I don't know if people still use them. I guess every now and then someone uses one, but we're talking FAFSA on the web tonight. So you want to gather all your information. Apply for your FSA user ID. Sometimes when you apply for it, it takes 3 days to be authenticated, because they do match your name, your date of birth, and your Social Security with the Social Security Administration. So give yourself a couple of days prior to when you want to sit down and do the FAFSA, so that you have all that together. You're going to gather your Social Security numbers for parents and for the student, and your 2015 federal tax returns and W-2s, and any bank statements that you have. Okay. Again, with FAFSA on the web, we're talking, and it's at fafsa.ed.gov or fafsa.gov. It's even at fafsa.com now this year. It never used to be. That used to be a private website where they would charge people to do the FAFSA for them, and that kind of took away from the free application for federal student aid. They would charge people, I think, a $50 fee, but from what I understand, the government has bought that URL from that company. So if you accidentally put in FAFSA.com, and I did try it today, it takes you to the FAFSA on the web. So for your first year, you're going to click on Start a New Application as incoming freshman for 2017-18. And then next year, when you go to do this renewal FAFSA, there will all your demographic information should be pre-populated. While you're in the FAFSA on the web, you'll have access to help and hints. There's a live chat. There's a lot of information and there's a lot of logic in it that doesn't allow you to make a mistake. For example, when it asks for the student's date of birth, if you put down the year 2017, it's going to pop you out. And there's a lot of logic like that so that you don't make simple mistakes. There is an opportunity when you first start the FAFSA that you'll put in your names, the student's name, social security, and date of birth, and you can put in a temporary password to save the FAFSA if you would get interrupted and have to come back to it at a later time, or you just didn't have all of your information. You can put in that password and then come right back into it. It's not required, but it is an option that's there for you. The first thing they're going to ask for is the student's demographics, the personal information of the student, name, social security number, and date of birth. And those all must match the Social Security Administration records. So you're going to want to use the name that appears on the Social Security card. So if your daughter's name is Christina, don't put Chris, put Christina. Whatever's on the Social Security card, because they will check that. And sometimes it'll go through, but sometimes it won't, and then it causes a whole array of problems. And those are the identifying markers that they use for each student, those three things: name, social security number, and date of birth. You'll want to provide a student email address. This will allow the Department of Ed to correspond with you when the FAFSA is completed, and they will send you a student aid report to that email address that they have on file. They're going to ask marital status and citizenship. The marital status, of course, is as the day you submit the FAFSA. So for the student, most of the students are single. And then when you do the parent information, they're going to ask you the same questions. Excuse me. So it's as of the date you submit the FAFSA. Citizenship, you must be a U.S. citizen or an eligible non-citizen to receive federal financial aid. Selective service. Males 18 through 25 must be registered with the Selective Service before they can receive federal financial aid. Males can register up to 9 months prior to their 18th birthday. So if you're a male applicant and you're not registered with the Selective Service and your 18th birthday is within 9 months, they will give you an opportunity to send your name to the Selective Service for registration. Time filling this out, you're going to be asked the name and location of your high school. If you are homeschooled, it will skip over the location for you. They're going to ask you information. I'm sorry, I forgot to change this again. Did I? No, I'm not. Okay, they're going to ask you information about what degree you're going to be seeking. And if you're attending St. Vincent College, it's your first bachelor's degree. Okay, then you're going to come to the school selection. You can list up to 10 schools here. The school, as Pennsylvania residents, I can tell you that the first school that you list, that is the record that the state of Pennsylvania will use, and that's where they will initially process your Pennsylvania state grant at. So if you're listing 3 schools and you list St. Vincent first, when you get an award letter from the state of Pennsylvania, it will list your award based on attendance at St. Vincent College. You will not get an award from the state for any other schools, but if later you change your mind, you can just contact them and say, hey, I'm not going to St. Vincent, which we hope is not true, or I'm going to ABC school, and you can transfer your Pennsylvania state grant there. The results of your FAFSA are sent to each school you list here. So if you list 10 schools, you're probably going to get 10 award letters in the mail from each school based on the FAFSA and your need-based aid. Okay, they're also going to ask you for your intended housing, whether it's as a commuter, on campus, or off campus housing. The next section that the student will have to answer are questions about their dependency status. Most high school students are considered dependent students. For federal financial aid purposes, there's a list of about, I think there's 12 questions that you have to answer. If you, the student, are able to answer yes to any one of those questions, you would be considered an independent student. If you cannot answer yes to any of those questions, you're considered, of course, a dependent student, and you must provide parental information on the FAFSA. If you're in a graduate program, if you have children, you the student, if you have children that you provide at least 50% support to, if you have dependents that you provide support to 50%, or you're in a legal guardianship, or you're homeless or at risk of being homeless. 99% of the students that come to St. Vincent are not going to be able to answer yes to any of those questions, therefore they are dependent students. We do have situations, rather unique situations with extenuating circumstances. If anybody has anything like that, they can contact the financial aid office and we can help you through that. Okay, the next section is parent demographics. So who, for federal financial aid purposes, is considered a parent? So that's a biological or adoptive parent and a step-parent. So if you live with your grandparents, you cannot put them, not siblings or legal guardians or sisters or brothers or uncles, unless you've been legally adopted by them. So it's biological parents, adoptive parents, and one step-parent. And to further describe parents are if they're married and living together or unmarried and living together, they're considered your parents for financial aid purposes. Remarried parents, if you're a student, you're living with mom and she's remarried to your step-parent, you will include mom and step-parents information on the FAFSA. Again, name, social security number, date of birth for the parent, also go through the Social Security Administration match. If you, the parent, would like to receive this information back from the Department of Ed, you should provide a parent email as well, because it will go to the student's email, and then if you provide a parent email, you will get that information as well. Make sure that you use an email address that you check often. Usually it'll take about a week or two once you've submitted the application to get your student aid report back by email. They're going to ask for the number in your household. So the number in the household that they're looking for is the student, the parents, and any other people that live in the household for whom the parents provide 50% support. And that is through July 1 of 2017 through June 30th of 2018. And they want to know the number in that household who are going to be enrolled at least half-time in college, who are going to be degree-seeking enrolled half-time in college. You can't count it if a student, a brother or sister, is attending a military academy. That does not count. Again, they have to be half-time, and you can't count the parent as attending college. So it's usually just any other siblings in the household, excuse me, that are attending college. Okay, so now we get to the financial information on the FAFSA. Again, you're going to use your 2015 federal tax return to fill out this FAFSA. In the past, you would have been using 2016, but that's no longer the case. So I would imagine that the vast majority of people have their 2015 taxes completed by now. And that being the case, you have the option to use the IRS data retrieval tool. And we strongly suggest this because this is the easiest way to get the correct IRS data into your FAFSA. Okay, again, since the 2015 tax filing deadline has passed, the DRT is available. You're encouraged to use it. This will minimize the number of documents that you would have to provide to your school if you're selected for verification. So the income information comes back into the FAFSA exactly as it appears on the tax return. It's brought over. So you're doing the FAFSA online, and then the IRS data retrieval option pops up, and it tells you you're going to be leaving the FAFSA, and we're going to take you over to the IRS. You will need to authenticate yourself within the IRS. You need to provide, I think, the exact name as it appeared on the tax return, the Social Security numbers, and the address that you had on that tax return in order to authenticate yourself within the IRS. All of the IRS information will appear to you, and then you have the option of pulling it back into the FAFSA. And again, we suggest that you do that because it minimizes mistakes. It pre-fills a lot of information, and it uses skip logic. Once you have all that information in there, they can see certain things, then there are other questions that you don't have to bother answering when you get back to the FAFSA. Some exceptions for the IRS data retrieval: if you're married, filing separately, if you filed a Puerto Rican tax return or filed as head of household, and if you're unmarried and living together, or an amended tax return, you will not be able to use the IRS data retrieval tool. Okay, new this year, people that did not file a tax return for 2015, we are required to collect, if you're selected for verification, a letter of non-filing from the IRS. So that's something new that's going on this year. Anybody have any questions so far? You can just stop me wherever you like. Yes, sir.
Do you have to use 2015, or could you use 2016?
Okay. So yeah, that's a good question because a lot of people have been asking. Yes, to begin with, you have to use the 2015 taxes. That's the base year that the Department of Ed is using. And just as an aside, if there's been a change in your circumstances where in 2015 you earned a lot more than you did in 2016 or what you expect to make in 2017, that's a special circumstance that you can contact our office and we can make arrangements to look at different income. But yes, 2015 is the base year that they look at. Okay, so financial aid, financial information continued. If you choose not to use the IRS data retrieval or you're not able to use it, you're going to have to fill it in. You have to look at your tax return, fill it in on the FAFSA. What you're going to want to do is use the exact line on the tax return that the FAFSA is asking for. So the AGI, I think if it's a 1040, it's line 37. If it's a 1040A, it's line 21. But it will tell you that right on the screen. So make sure you use the correct line. Income earned from work, and that's usually found on your W-2s. If you're self-employed, that would be your net income on your Schedule C. Dislocated worker, if you're a dislocated worker because you lost your job, you were laid off, or a displaced homemaker collecting unemployment, a self-employed but you're not working due to economic conditions, you can consider yourself a dislocated worker. You can answer yes to that, or if you don't know, just put down I don't know. There's going to be a question, did you receive any federal benefits in the year 2015 or 2016, such as food stamps, or it's now called SNAP, temporary assistance to needy families, Social Security, disability, Medicaid, anything like that? If you received any of those federal benefits, indicate yes on the FAFSA. That will also eliminate some more questions that you don't have to answer. The next question is going to be, if you filed a 1040, were you eligible to file a 1040A or EZ? If you don't know, you can put down I don't know. And then the taxes paid. That's one of the biggest mistakes people made. It's what your actual federal tax liability is. So it's not what was withheld from your pay. It's not what, if you're self-employed, the combination of your federal tax and your Social Security tax that you have to pay, but it's just your federal tax liability. And again, the FAFSA on the web will tell you exactly which line from your tax return to take it from. Okay, so additional financial information that would be found on the tax return is any grants, scholarships, or combat pay, only if it's included in your adjusted gross income. Any education credits that you were able to claim, perhaps from another student or from yourself attending school. IRA deductions and self-employed qualified KEHO plans. Tax-exempt interest income. untaxed IRAs. So those things you're going to find on the tax return. Some things that will not appear on your tax return that you're just going to have to come up with is child support paid. So if you paid out any child support for any children not living in your household, you'll need to put that information. Excuse me. Any child support you received into your household for all children, workers' comp, VA non-educational benefits, and any payments to tax-deferred pensions, and that usually appears on your W-2, what your employer takes out of your pay to contribute to your pension. Okay, the next section that's going to come up is assets. Certain situations do not require you to submit asset information. If required, this information is collected to see if your assets are substantial enough to contribute to your son or daughter's education. So what they want to see is your net value of your assets. So first of all, they're going to ask for any cash savings and checking that you have, and your net investments. So your investments, your current value of your investments minus any debt that you have on those investments, and net worth of a business or a farm less any debt that you have on that business or a farm. Okay, so people always call us and say, do I have to report this? Do I have to report that? So here's just a quick rundown of things that you do have to report. Total balance of cash savings and checking. So if it's more than $10 million, only put $9,999,999. Don't forget, there's not enough spaces to put $10 million. Okay, if it's negative or zero, you should put a 0. The net worth of your investments or your farm, again, the value minus the debt. You're going to want to include real estate other than the home that you live in. So if you own a vacation home or you own rental property, you're going to have to include that. Trust funds, money market, mutual funds, CDs, educational savings accounts, and 529 plans, the value of the 529 plans. But that will go under the parent's asset information, not the student's asset information. If the, say, grandparents have a 529 for your son or daughter, that's not reportable on the FAFSA. So you don't report the home in which you live, you don't report the value of life insurance or any pensions that you have, any 401k, any retirement plans, and any non-educational IRAs or KEHOs. Again, if you have any further questions, more complicated questions for asset information, you can call with this number 1-800-4-FED-AID, and they will be able to walk you through that. So you've done all that, you've went through it for the student, now you're going to repeat and give in all that information for the parent, the financial aid, or the financial adjusted gross information, taxes paid, whatnot, under the parent. When you come to the end, you're going to sign the FAFSA using your FSA user ID. You're agreeing to the terms and you're signing this electronically. Another option, if you don't want to use your FSA user ID to sign the FAFSA electronically, you can then print out a signature page right then and mail it in. Your FAFSA will be rejected until that they receive the signature page and it matches up with that. And then you're going to make sure that you click on the Submit Now button. You'll receive a confirmation, so make sure you've received that confirmation that tells you that you have sent it off and the Department of Ed is in the process of looking at it, and they'll get back to you. There's a printable page for what the information that you've submitted. And then again, in about a week or two, if you provided a valid email address, you will get the results of the FAFSA via that email address to the student email and to the parent's email if you provided both. It's called a student aid report. You have the opportunity to look it over, and if you find any errors that you may have made, you can certainly go in and make those corrections. Again, help is available by calling our office, of course, anytime. But when you're in the FAFSA and you're doing the FAFSA on the web, there's a live chat. There's helpful hints that you can drill into while you're doing the FAFSA on each question. You can certainly call the 800 toll-free number to the central processor. If you're really interested, there's an EFC formula guide under the Department of Ed website. I think there's like 74 different calculations that they put into it to come up with your EFC. We didn't talk about that, but the EFC is your expected family contribution. That is the number that this FAFSA is going to arrive at, taking all of your information into consideration. They're going to arrive at this EFC number, and then this EFC number guides financial aid offices to determine what need-based aid you're eligible for. On the College Board website, there's an EFC calculator, so if you want to sit down and go on the College Board website and put in your information without doing the FAFSA, you can certainly do that, and it'll give you a fairly good idea of what your EFC is going to come up to. On St. Vincent College website, we have a net price calculator, which asks a lot of the same questions, and when you put that information in, it kind of comes up with, it doesn't give you your EFC, but it internally calculates an EFC and estimates about what you're going to be eligible for. So that's a nice tool if you're looking to see what kind of aid you would be eligible for at St. Vincent College. It's a really good tool to look at. Any questions? Yes?
I have a question regarding FAFSA for your freshman year at college, like your sophomore year at college.
Mm-hmm.
So that would open in October as well?
Yes. So
October of this year. And you would report on your
2016.
2016? Okay, so I've heard that you repeat 2015.
So this is the first year. So if your son or daughter was in college last year, you're using 2015 2 years in a row. But that's the only time it's going to happen this year, right now, for 17, 18.
You already have been enrolled to use it twice.
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
Steve?
Repeat that question.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to repeat the question. The question was, when you go to do your renewal FAFSA for next year, for the sophomore year of your son or daughter, will you use 2015 income information again? The answer is no. For the 2018-19 school year, when your sons or daughters will be sophomores, you will use the 2016 income. Okay. In October of 2017. Yeah, so as freshmen, you'll barely be in your seat in class and you'll be doing your FAFSA for the next year. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I actually have two.
Okay.
The first one deals with the 529 plans.
Mm-hmm.
I have one for both of my children.
Okay.
My daughter's the one that would be attending St. Vincent. So when we fill out our financial information, that would fall under the parents' assets, so to speak.
That's
correct.
That's correct. If the
Only for my daughter, like her value of her plan. Also my son's.
actually, it's your savings account, so it's just what you have. You, as the owner of the 529, have in assets under 529.
Okay.
So if you have 10 kids and you have a 529 for all of them, it's the total.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
My second question, I'm sorry, I'm going to work with you. I also collected a VA disability check.
Okay.
And I know you had on the chart up there non-educational income. That would fall under that, correct?
Untaxed income, yes.
Okay.
Repeat.
Okay.
Repeat the question.
Okay. The question was about the 529. If he has multiple children, they each have a 529 plan. He is the parent, and the 529 is in the parent's name. He, as the parent, reports the total combined of the 529. Also asked a question about VA benefits. He's VA. I'm sorry, you said disability benefits. That's reported like workers' comp as untaxed income. Yes, ma'am.
I have a life insurance policy for my daughter, like Gerber grew up plan. What does that qualify for?
Life insurance does not have to be reported as an asset. Life insurance, pensions, the question was, sorry, do we have to report life insurance? No, you do not have to report a life insurance policy. Life insurance, pensions, 401ks, you do not have to report that as an asset. Any other questions? Okay. Well, Christine and I will be around afterwards, and we're always available Monday through Friday from 8:30 to 4:30, by email, by phone. If you have any questions, feel free to stop in, give us a call. Thank you. Thanks for coming.